What is the One Piece? What happened during the Void Century, and how will One Piece, the possibly most well-written story of our time, end? These are the three biggest questions that every One Piece fan is burning to get answers to above anything else. And every now and then, a theory comes around, an idea so wild and different that no matter how unlikely it might be to actually turn out to be the truth, it completely turns our perspective on One Piece completely on its head. This is one of these ideas that has a very unconventional and radical take on the final twist of Luffy's adventure to become the king of the pirates and change the world. Why? Well, because it involves one of the, if not the most controversial tropes of storytelling, time travel. And yet, even though I'm usually very skeptic of this concept myself, if what I'm about to tell you is actually true, it would make the most satisfying ending to One Piece that I personally have yet come across. So, based on the most recent developments in the story, we've all taken it for granted by now that Luffy is JoyBoy. Whether that means that he's possessed, has awakened his spirit, or simply has inherited his will, many people were quite skeptical about the idea that Luffy might stop being only Luffy, but become a child of prophecy who was destined to do great things right from the start. And so rightfully there was the worry that Luffy being some sort of reincarnation might take away from his achievements and being the special and unique person who we all have grown to love and cheer for over many years. All of this now thrown overboard with the reveal that Luffy is JoyBoy, the man Roger and Oden and many others have been waiting for. But what if we actually got it all wrong? What if it's one of Eiichiro Oda's famous red herrings? Like how Teach said that he didn't have the type of ambition to become the 2nd Division commander because of course he had much greater ambitions than that. Or how the Gomu Gomu no Mi was a mythical zone fruit all along. So what if Luffy wasn't really JoyBoy? What if JoyBoy was actually Luffy, who traveled back to the Void Century? Sounds absolutely ridiculous at first, but you might be surprised how well this would actually fit into the storyline overall. And so even if I wouldn't rate this as the most probable thing to happen in the story, I'm sure you will enjoy the conclusion to this just as much as I did. It all started with a mysterious message I got a few weeks ago from a subscriber of this channel who shared with me a number of articles and posts about the idea that the strange world of One Piece might be the result of a time loop or time leap happening. Now, a lot of these ideas were basically pure fan fiction. However, a few ideas here and there stood out to me as quite interesting at that point already. For instance, how certain events seem to repeat themselves throughout the story. The government that has apparently conducted major cleansings throughout the centuries. Very similar people like JoyBoy, Noland, or Roger repeatedly popping up in different eras. How the Void Century and people of the past keep communicating with the present through objects like the Poneglyphs or inherited will. And of course, the parallel between Luffy's straw hat and the giant straw hat on Meridior kept by Imu, the secret ruler of the world, who, by the way, looks a lot like a giant hand on a clock sitting on her throne. And in general, as you know, time shenanigans are and always have been a very popular theme in anime and manga, say for example Your Name. However, the thing that finally got my full attention on this idea was a 2-year-old video by a smaller One Piece YouTuber called Otherwise Ace, who published a really awesome video titled Luffy is the original JoyBoy from the Void Century, long before Zunisha ever recognized Luffy's awakening as JoyBoy. Big shout out to him, I'll leave a link to his video in the description below. Okay, so in his video, he gives a bunch of wonderfully collected evidence how Luffy and the Straw Hats time traveling back into the Void Century would fit surprisingly well with the story up till now. And given what we now know about Luffy and his devil fruit, I think this all has become just the more likely and fascinating. But before we talk about how Luffy and co would even get into the past, let's just assume for a second that they do for now. The most interesting and mysterious clue about Laugh Tale and the One Piece that we've gotten in the story so far is the Roger pirates actually arriving there and literally bursting into into laughter, most likely after reading JoyBoy's story, as Roger himself comments that he would have loved to meet JoyBoy and be born in the same era as him. An era, by the way, that as far as we know was just mainly war and destruction. Well, if Luffy were JoyBoy, that would mean that Roger was actually reading the story of the Straw Hats that we have been reading up to this point as well. A story that is meant to bring us joy with all its adventures and a quirky crew, and Luffy being the person who will change the world by going back in time. And I think it would also be hilarious to Roger and co, because not only would they be reading the best story ever, but also follow the adventures of someone who will be born 20 years in their future. They themselves will be included in the story written on the Poneglyphs as well. They will know all about how they themselves helped Luffy reach his goal. Pretty meta, I know, but let's be real, how awesome would that actually be? Luffy would of course tell the story where he was from and about his brother Ace and how his death would be the key to becoming Pirate King. And so suddenly Roger decides to have a kid that he then entrusts to none other than Garp, the man who he fought side by side with and Luffy's grandfather. It would also change the line of Roger wishing he had been born in JoyBoy's era and Rayleigh saying that they were too early arriving at 𝙬𝚘𝚡, because that would all make sense if they were talking about Luffy's era. Roger knew that he would die and never get to meet him, and it is also why they knew exactly about the 20 years until JoyBoy's return. It of course also fits in really nicely with Oden's prediction of JoyBoy returning and opening the borders of Wano, which of course has now pretty much happened. Zunisha was the one who confirmed that his old companion had returned, and who really better to make friends with a giant elephant than Luffy, who we have constantly been seeing befriending all types of giant animals throughout the story. The Kraken Tsurume, the Bull on Dressrosa, the animals during his time skip, you name it. Now obviously, as you will have already noticed by this point, this idea gets really messy really fast, of course, like all time travel things do. Like, who influences what? Who actually changes the future? Or is everyone just caught in an eternal time loop in One Piece? How can Luffy actually change the present if he is part of the past? Well, telling such a story is a real walk along the edge, but if there is one person I would trust in pulling it off successfully, it is Eiichiro Oda. One major issue with this idea that otherwise Ace mentions with this theory is the fact that Buggy, Crocus, Shanks, and Rayleigh, all members of the Roger Pirates, didn't recognize Luffy as JoyBoy. Or did they? Interestingly enough, however, we do know that it was exactly those three, Shanks, Buggy, and Crocus, that stayed behind as the Roger Pirates traveled to the final islands. They were the only three who never got to read the entire story. On top of that, I personally think that for Shanks and Crocus, you could very well argue that they did in fact recognize Luffy. As I've talked about a bunch before, Shanks basically bet everything on Luffy becoming the person Roger had been waiting for, the person who did eat the Nika fruit. Similarly, Crocus wonders if Luffy is the same man that they've been waiting for, implying that Roger was waiting for JoyBoy, who we now know is in fact Luffy. And Rayleigh, yes, who did go to 𝙬𝚘𝚡, has been acting very suspiciously around Luffy right from the start. The very first words he tells Luffy is that he always wanted to meet him. The very same words Roger used on 𝙬𝚘𝚡. I mean, even out of the blue, he offers Luffy to tell him and the crew the secret of 𝙬𝚘𝚡, already knowing that Luffy would refuse, and then goes on to train him personally for 2 years. If this theory is true, Rayleigh absolutely knows exactly that Luffy is indeed JoyBoy. Actually, looking at it from this lens makes all of Luffy's interactions with Rayleigh just pure goosebump moments for me. Like, for example, when Rayleigh asks Luffy whether he can actually do it and conquer the Grand Line, that smile he has there is just so all-knowing. He tells Robin not to be too hasty and continue their journey one step at a time, as if to say that they shouldn't skip ahead to the point that he already knows they will reach. He says that even if he told them the truth, the Straw Hats wouldn't be able to do anything about it anyways the way they are right now. Like, dude, if Rayleigh really knows what the Straw Hats will become and tell them the truth, of course it wouldn't really help Luffy and co at all. They would still need to become strong enough in the first place. And he literally tells Robin that they will see it all in the end anyways, as if he already knows they're gonna be successful and kind of live through it themselves. Now, continuing on that thought, Robin might very well have been the one who wrote the Poneglyphs in the first place, including the one on Fishman Island that first mentions JoyBoy by name. It would mean that JoyBoy's promise to the Mermaid Princess is literally Luffy's promise to Shirahoshi the last time that they met in the present. What I love so much about this theory up to this point is how it deals with the idea of prophecy and Luffy being JoyBoy in by far the most elegant way I have come across personally. Luffy and the Straw Hats literally being the one who created the Poneglyphs and telling Roger about himself and their journey, telling him exactly when they would arrive at Wano and free it, perfect. And it would also open up so many other fun possibilities, like Luffy being the first one to pass on his Straw Hat only to receive it back 800 years later by Shanks. Or Frankie being Vegapunk who got left behind in the past. You get the idea. And I'm sure you guys will be able to come up with a ton more as well. Now, assuming that all of this were actually true, which I think already would require a lot of assumptions to be true, all of this leaves us, of course, with another big question. How would the Straw Hats travel back in time in the first place? Well, the first really good message in this regard is that time travel has been established officially as a real possibility in One Piece with the introduction of Toki and her powers. For now, all we know is that it's definitely possible to travel into the future, but it opens up the door very wide to the possibility of traveling into the past as well. One option would be, for example, that Luff's tail itself functions as a sort of portal to the past, which would be similar to the idea that it is a portal to the underworld, based on the song being Sake, that seems to contain a lot of hints around the One Piece. Another possibility could be the national treasure of Marijua, maybe the giant straw hat itself being a device that allows for time travel, which might, for example, be how Imu and the world government have remained in power for so long. Who knows, maybe whenever something went wrong, they would just reset that event and make it never happen in the first place. That would actually be a pretty freaky idea, thinking that the government has actually been overthrown a bunch of times successfully before, but they just always changed the past. That would also work really nicely with the image of Imu on the throne looking like the hand of a clock. But by far, the most likely option would of course be the possibility of a devil fruit having that same ability. As you probably know, there are certain sets of devil fruits that work either as extensions or opposites to each other, like the fire fruit being a weaker version of the magma fruit, or Baby Five's fruit being a stronger version of Mr. One's. Then there would be opposite ones like Bello Betty's fruit and Perona's, one that drains morale and one that boosts it, or Kanjuro that can make 2D things into 3D, and Jolla that turns 3D things into 2D. Jolla, who by the way is part of the same crew as Treble. Now in case you don't know, I've been trying to overtake Treble in terms of bounty worth. This slimy and obnoxious man has a bounty of 99 million berries, and if you convert all 580,000 of you awesome people into yen, berries basically, that would give me a bounty of 58 million, and I just can't let that stand, so please help me overtake Treble. Now, this theme of opposite or supplementary fruits is especially true for paramecia type fruits. In other words, if there's a devil fruit that allows you to travel into the future, it would not be all too far-fetched to have a fruit that allows you to do just the opposite. Or maybe another alternative would be that it's an awakening ability of the time fruit itself. Now, Toki is of course a very interesting character in this context in particular. Why did she travel into the future from the Void Century? How did she know where exactly to travel to meet Odin? How did she know to send the samurai exactly to Luffy's time periods? And why did she decide not to travel into the future herself? Well, if she met Luffy and co during the Void Century, she would know all about the Ancient Kingdom's demise being near and trying to prepare a counter move herself. She would be the perfect candidate to send the Straw Hats back to their timeline and then follow them into the future to try and take down the world governments. Time travel or not, devil fruits will most likely be the key to the Void Century and the secrets of the One Piece world. And if you truly want to understand where they might have come from, you really shouldn't miss out this video right here.